Hi, Levins, Mrs. George here. I'm back on chapter 8 today, so I am just going to write chapter 8. I'm sure my handwriting is much better than this guy's, but I don't know why I'm writing on while I'm writing here. It's getting. Anyway. At the entrance to the camp, SS officers were waiting for us. We were counted, then we were directed to the Appelplatz. So, as I told you, that word, the German word means the place where they are taking the roll call. So, they were directed to that place. The orders were given over the loudspeakers from ranks of fives, groups of 100, 5 steps forward. And next line is really important because you could see again the father-son relationship and how Ellie is holding on to his father and saying, I tightened my grip on my father's hand, the old familiar fear not to lose him. And there is a beautiful alliteration as well, old familiar, familiar fear, alliteration. So that's a beautiful alliteration as well. So, to emphasize that fear, because they have been on constant fear about losing each other. So, I tightened my grip on my father's hand, the old familiar fear not to lose him. So, we could see the father son bond, father son or family or relationship there. Very close to us stood the tall chimney of the crematorium's furnace. It no longer impressed us, it barely drew our attention. A veteran of Buchenwald told us that we would be taking a shower and afterward be sent to different blocks. The idea of hot shower fascinated me. My father didn't say a word. He was breathing heavily beside me. Many times we could see that the father is not, the father is actually keeping quiet. Father is not saying things. It's because when he is not sure about what to say, not sure about how to answer Ellie's question. Father, I said, just another moment. Soon we will be able to lie down. You will be able to rest. Again, look at the ellipses. He is not sure about it and he cannot even complete that sentence. He didn't answer. Again, father's silence. So we could see the silence of father many times. Father is actually silent because they are powerless and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. That's the reason why. I myself, I myself, I myself was so weary that his silence left me indifferent. Again, before that, this sentence you could say that is a sentence of hope. He is trying to encourage his father and trying to give hope to his father. So he didn't answer. I myself was so weary that his silence left me indifferent. My only wish was to take the shower as soon as possible and lie down on a cot. Only it wasn't easy to reach the showers. Hundreds of prisoners crowded the area. The guards seemed unable to restore order. They were lashing out left and right to no avail. Some prisoners who didn't have strength to jostle or even to stand sat down in the snow. My father wanted to do the same. He was moaning, I can't anymore. It's over. I shall die right here. Again, we could see the hopelessness of father and the depth of his suffering. He is saying that I can't anymore. It's over. I shall die right here. He dragged me towards a pile of snow from which protruded human shapes, torn blankets. Again, we could see graphic and violent imagery there. Out of the snow, we could see the protruded human shapes and torn blankets. So basically, it's like violent and graphic, especially protruded human shape. That phrase, you could call that as a graphic or violent imagery. Graphic or violent imagery. Leave me, he said. I can't go any more. Have pity on me. I will wait here until we can go into the showers. You will come and get me. So we are actually seeing the powerlessness or hopelessness of the father. He is so tired he can't even move. I could have screamed in anger. To have lived and endured so much, was I going to let my father die now? So it's more like a rhetorical. He's thinking about it and he says that I can't leave my father after all these endurance, after all these long sufferings. We have suffered everything together. And now, at the last minute, I can't let my father die now. Now that we would be able to take a good hot shower and lie down. Father, I howled. Father, get up right now. You will kill yourself. So he is trying to trying to do as best as he can. So, father son relationship we could see throughout. He's trying his best to encourage and motivate his father and to give a kind of hope and strength to his father. So, that's why he's howling, Father, Father, get up right now, you will kill yourself. And I grabbed his arm. He continued to mourn. Don't yell, my son. Have pity on your old father. Let me rest here a little. I beg of you. I'm so tired. No more strength. You could see the ellipses throughout, and constantly it is actually showing us they don't know what's going to happen, and it's a kind of uncertainty. He doesn't know what to say. He can't move. So it's a lot of uncertainty throughout, and that's why Ellie is constantly using that. Elie Wiesel, the author, is actually using that ellipsis. He had become childlike, weak, frightened, vulnerable, and look at the adjectives used to show the weakness. Look at the adjectives. Continuous use of adjectives: weak, frightened, vulnerable. So that so there is he's using continuous adjectives there here, and we could see that here: weak, frightened child, vulnerable. So he had actually become childlike, and to show his helplessness and weakness, Elie Wiesel, the author, is actually using that three adjectives to show that he is actually weak, frightened, and vulnerable, and he is like a child now. Father, I said, you cannot stay here. I pointed to the corpse around him. They too had wanted to rest here. So he is pointing to the corpse around him again. It's all about death. The whole chapter, it's mainly about death. We could see corpses everywhere. We could see corpses dancing as we saw in the other chapter. So I pointed to the corpses around him. They too had wanted to rest here. I see, my son. I do see them. Let them sleep. They haven't closed an eye for so long. They are exhausted. They are exhausted, exhausted. His voice was tender. I howled into the wind. They are dead. They will never wake up. Never. Do you understand? So he is trying his best to take care of his father and trying to motivate and give some kind of hope and courage and strength to his father. So that's why he is constantly pointing out to those people who are lying down and saying that they are actually dead, they are not going to wake up again. This discussion continued for some time. I knew that I was no longer arguing with him, but with death itself, with death that he had already chosen. So that's why I said it's full of, the chapter is mainly full of the theme of death. And you could see that, as I told you in last chapter, he is actually personifying death here. See, death, the word, even that word is capitalized, the death. So personifying death as a person personifies death. And that's why he says that I knew that I was no longer arguing with my father, but I was arguing with death itself. So personifying death as a person with death that he has already chosen. And again, the importance of that last phrase, the death that he has already chosen, because of his physical weakness, he can't move and he can't hold on to any more hope. So that's why he is saying, as he had already chosen. So personification is happening there. He is basically personifying death. So Ellie is still fighting for his father's life, but it may be too late, but still he is trying his best to help his father and to encourage his father. And that's how we could see the beautiful father son relationship, especially in this chapter. The sirens began to wail. The lights went out in the entire camp. The guards chased us towards the block. In a flash, there was no one left outside. We were only too glad not to have to stay outside any longer. In the freezing wind, we let ourselves sink into the floor. The cauldrons at the entrance found no takers. There were several tiers of bunks. To sleep was all that mattered because they were so tired, and they are lacking the sleep, and that was the most important thing that they need. When I woke up, it was daylight. That is when I remembered that I had a father. So maybe try and underline this particular line as well. So why did Ellie stop the argument with his father? because mainly because the lights went out in the entire camp. The guards chased us towards the block. That's why, in a flash, there were no one left outside. So that's why he had to go because of the sirens. He had to go away. He stopped arguing with his father and he had to go. And he felt he was sleeping somewhere, and then he woke up next day, and it was daylight. That is when I remembered that I had a father. During the alert, I had followed the mob, not taking care of him. I knew he was running out of strength, close to death, and yet I abandoned him. That's a very important paragraph. And the whole paragraph actually tells us about Elie Wiesel's guilty feeling, and his inaction. Though he tried his best before, still he feels that he has got that guilty feeling, because he says that this is when I remembered that I had a father. During the alert, when he heard the siren, I had followed the mob, not taking care of him, just ignoring father. I knew he was running out of strength. He clearly knew that his father was running out of strength. He knew that he was close to death, and yet I abandoned him. So that guilty feeling, it's not because Elie Wiesel has voluntarily decided not to take care of his father. He too was tired. He too was trying his best, and he had to go because of the siren. So he has got that guilty feeling, a feeling of inaction, that he hasn't done anything to take care of his father. I went to look for him. Yet at the same time, a thought crept into my mind. This paragraph is very, very, very important. Yet at the same time, a thought crept into my mind. If only I didn't find him. If only I were relieved of this responsibility, I could use all my strength to fight fight for my own survival, to take care only of myself. Instantly, I felt ashamed of myself forever. So here we could see a of moment of his thought where he is actually thinking that it would be good if he didn't find his father. He's not actually saying that it'll be good, but he's imagining, if only I didn't find him father, if only I were relieved of this responsibility, because he too is tired, and that kind of a thought is just entering into his mind. That's just coming into his mind. That thought is just resurrecting into his mind. I could use all my strength. So if he couldn't find his father, he could use all his strength to fight for his own survival, to take care only himself. But instantly, after saying that, or after flashing that thought in his mind, instantly he says, I felt ashamed of myself forever, even just for thinking like that. Because you know that he has been constantly praying to God to make him to not to do like Rabbi Elihu's son. Rabbi Elihu's son has actually abandoned his father, and he, from that moment onwards, Eli has been praying in his mind, please God, give me strength to take care of my father. Please don't let me do just like Rabbi Elihu's son has done. So here he is having that guilty feeling, especially in that last sentence. Guilty feeling is there. He is feeling really guilty, even thinking about like that, or thinking like that. So Eli's guilt over these moments of wishing his father has died is actually an undertone throughout the book. One can see it in the way he actually pays special attention to the ways sons fail their fathers. We had seen many instances where sons are actually failing their fathers. And the reason why is he is giving such an emphasis to father-son relationship is because he has got a father just like them. So his guilt over these moments of wishing his father has died is actually an undertone throughout that book. He has, even though he hasn't done anything to abandon his father, still he has got a guilty feeling at times in his mind, and that is the reason why he is saying it out, or he's saying even his innermost thoughts. He's revealing that innermost thoughts to us. I walked for hours without finding him. Then I came to a block where they were distributing black coffee. People stood in line, quarreled. A plaintive voice came from behind me. Eliezer, my son, bring me a little coffee. I ran towards him. So he was so happy to meet his father. Father, I have been looking for you for so long. Where were you? Did you sleep? How are you feeling? He seemed to be burning with fear. I fought my way to the coffee cauldron like a beast. A beautiful language technique, like a beast. Again, animal imagery. It's a simile. And there is animal imagery like a beast. And it also indicates that they have turned like animals. They were dehumanized a lot. So that's why that importance of animal imagery there. So he seemed to be burning with fever. I fought my way to the coffee cauldron like a wild beast, simile, and I succeeded in bringing back a cup. I took one gulp. The rest was for him. I shall never forget I shall never forget I shall never forget the gratitude that shone in his eyes when he swallowed his beverage, swallowed this beverage. So that thankfulness or the gratitude of the father, and he says that he couldn't forget that. The gratitude of a wounded animal, again, animal imagery there. The gratitude of a wounded animal imagery. Gosh, I don't need to write that. I'll just put an arrow. The gratitude of a wounded animal. With these few mouthfuls of hot water, I had probably given him more satisfaction than during my entire childhood. A very good lesson for everyone, guys. Elie Wiesel actually says that he has actually, by giving that mouthful of hot water, he probably had given him more satisfaction than during my entire childhood. That's what he says. Because we have to take care of our parents when they actually need us. And that is what Elie is trying to tell us. So at that moment, he needed Elie Wiesel. Ellie's father needed Elie Wiesel. And when he got that few mouthfuls of hot water, he says that he could see the gratitude of a wounded animal on his father. And he says that I shall never forget the gratitude that shone in his eyes when he actually swallowed that, when he actually drank that coffee. So we could see the beautiful father-son relationship throughout these pages. He was lying on the boards, ashen, his lips pale and dry, shivering. I couldn't stay with him any longer. We had been ordered to go outside to allow for cleaning of the blocks. Only the sick could remain inside. Inside. We stayed outside for 5 hours. We were given soup. When they allowed us to return to the blocks, I rushed towards my father. Did you eat? No. Why? They didn't give us anything. They said that we were sick, that we would die soon, and that it would be a waste of food. I can't go on. Again, we could see the inhumanity. We could see the inhumanity there. They didn't give us anything. They said that we were sick, that we would die soon, and that it would be a waste of food. And finally, he says, I can't go on. So we could see the inhumanity and the brutality done to the Jews by the Nazis. Inhumanity and the brutality and his father's hopelessness. I gave him what was left of my soup. Um, I gave him what was left of my soup, but my heart was heavy. I was aware that I was doing it grudgingly. Again, that line is really important. Those two lines, I would say that is really, 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 really important. I gave him what was left of my soup. So when he came back, he realized that his father didn't eat. They haven't given anything to his father because they consider sick people, they consider giving food to sick people as a waste because they know that they are going to die soon. So I gave him what was left of my soup, but my heart was heavy. But when Elie gave his soup, he says that he very clearly and he very in very honestly he says that his heart was heavy. I was aware that I was doing it grudgingly. I was aware that I was giving the soup grudgingly. I was not happy. Just like Rabbi Eli's son, I had not passed the test. So here at this moment too, he's thinking about his father, and he's thinking just like Rabbi Eli's son has thought about his father. It's better to ignore him. It's better not to give him. But that thoughts have been actually passing through his mind. And Elie Wiesel is actually trying to give us his honest reflection about his own life, and that's why he says that even such kind of thoughts were in my mind. And he also makes it clear about his guilty feeling, and about his inaction. Guilty feeling and inaction. It's mainly guilt. Despite his sense of guilt, Ellie makes sacrifices to try to save his father's life. Again, we could see that how he's trying to save his father's life one more time. He's trying his best. So there is a sense of guilt always in his mind, but he's trying his best. He is overcoming all that. He's overcoming all his all his thoughts, and he is trying to take care of his father. Every day, my father was getting weaker. His eyes were watery. His face has the color. His face has the color of dead leaves. Again, his face has the color of dead leaves. A beautiful metaphor there. Metaphor. On the third day after we arrived in Buchenwald, everybody had to go to the showers, even the sick who were instructed to go last. When we returned from the showers, we had to wait outside a long time. The cleaning of the blocks had not been completed. From afar, I saw my father and ran to meet him. He went by me. He went by me like a shadow, passing me without stopping, without a glance. I called to him. He did not turn around. I ran after him. So again, another simile. He went by me like a shadow. He went by me like a shadow, passing without stopping. Father, where are you running? He looked at me for a moment, and his gaze was distant, otherworldly, the face of a stranger. Again, otherworldly, the face of a stranger. Beautiful metaphor there. His face, he had a face of a stranger. Metaphor. It lasted only a moment, and then he ran away. Suffering from dysentery, my father was prostrate on his cot. And we know that Elie Wiesel's father has got a sickness called dysentery, which is more like a infection in tummy. It's like a tummy infection. Suffering from dysentery, my father was prostrate on his cot with another 5 sick inmates nearby. I sat next to him, watching him. I no longer dared to believe that he could still elude death. I did all I could to give him hope. So he could see his father suffering, and even he is sitting near to his father and trying to give him hope. I no longer dared even to believe that he could still elude or he could still escape death. I did all I could to give him hope. All of a sudden, he sat up and placed his feverish lips against my ear. Eliasa, I must tell you where I buried the gold and silver in the cellar, you know. So he know that his last moments are nearby, and he's trying to reveal all his secrets to his son. And he began talking faster and faster, afraid of running out of time before he could tell me everything. We could see the same sentence. We saw the same sentence back in, I think, I can't remember which chapter, but we have heard the same phrase, same sentence from his father. And at that moment, father is actually giving him a spoon as his inheritance. So, same way, here too, he is losing all hope, and he began talking faster and faster, afraid of running out of time before he could tell me everything. I tried to tell him that it was not over yet, that we would be going home together. But he no longer wanted to listen to me. He could no longer listen to me. He was worn out. Saliva mixed with blood was trickling from his lips. He had closed his eyes. He was gasping more than breathing. So again, we could see the beautiful father-son relationship and his motivation of his father. He's trying to motivate his father. At times, I'm not able to highlight what I want. Again, hope. You could write hope, trying to give hope. For a ration of bread, I was able to exchange cords to be next to my father. Again, beautiful. We could see that love of Eliezer to his father. When the doctor arrived in the afternoon, I went to tell him that my father was very ill. Bring him here. I explained that he could not stand up, but the doctor would not listen, and so with great difficulty I brought my father to him. He stared at him, then asked curtly, "What do you want?" "My father is sick," I answered in his place. "Dysentery." "That's not my business. I am a surgeon. Go on, make room for the others." So again, we could see the inhumanity. Even the doctor would not listen. Doctor would not listen. So we could see that inhumanity and brutality. He is not even ready to come to a sick person who cannot walk. So, in humanity, my protests were in vain. "I can't go on, my son. Take me back to my bunk." So that's what father's situation is. He is suffering a lot, and he says that he has lost all his hope and he has got no more strength on his body. I took him back and helped him lie down. He was shivering. "Try to get some sleep, father. Try to fall asleep." His breathing was labored. His eyes were closed. But I was convinced that he was seeing everything, that he was seeing the truth in all things. Another doctor came to the block. My father refused to get up. He knew that it would be of no use. In fact, the doctor had come only to finish off the patients. Again, another euphemistic language. To finish off, to kill. Euphemism, euphemistic language, euphemism. I listened to him shouting at them that they were lazy, good for nothings who only wanted to stay in bed. I considered jumping him, strangling him, but I had neither the courage nor the strength. I was riveted to my father's agony. My hands were aching. I was clenching them so hard to strangle the doctor and the others, to set the whole world on fire, my father's murderers, but even the cry stuck in my throat. So we could see his revenge. He's so, it's not revenge, he's really angry. I considered jumping, so that's what he says. I considered jumping him, strangling him. So he was actually powerless. He couldn't do anything. So it is mainly his guilty feeling, his revenge, his anger. We could see all that guilt, revenge, anger, his powerlessness. He's not able to act. He's not able to protect his father. So we could see all the mixed emotions, guilt, revenge, anger, and the powerlessness. So he's stuck with the feelings of the guilt about his powerlessness. He's really stuck with, and that's what it's indicated. Even the cry stuck in my thought. So he is actually stuck with feelings of guilt about his powerlessness, about his lack of power, so that he can help his father. On my return from the bread distribution, I found my father crying like a child. Now, constantly in this chapter, Eliezer's father is compared to a child, comparing father to a child. Another simile here, like a child. My son, they are beating me. Who? I thought he was delirious. Him, the Frenchman, and the Pole. They beat me. One more stab to the heart, one more reason to hate, less reason to live. Again, we could see the anger, we could see the powerlessness in the mind of Elie Wiesel. One more stab to the heart, one more reason to hate, one less reason to live. Eliezer, Eliezer, tell them not to beat me. I haven't done anything. Why are they beating me? I began to insult his neighbors. They mocked me. I promised them bread, soup. They laughed. Then they got angry. They could not stand my father any longer, they said, because he no longer was able to drag himself out to relieve himself. So he, as I told you, father is having dysentery, and that's like constant motion going from his body, and it actually smells, and that's the reason why people are beating him. That's why they are mocking him, because he no longer was able to drag himself to go out to the toilet and relieve himself. So that was the main problem. The following day he complained that they had taken his ration of bread. Next day he's complaining that people had taken his ration of bread. While were you asleep? No, I wasn't asleep. They threw themselves on me. They snatched it from me, my bread, and they beat me again. I can't go on, my son. Give me some water. Again, we could see the inhumanity, animalization of humans. They are behaving like the people nearby him are behaving like animals. Animalization of human beings. They are beating people just for food. I knew that I knew that he must not drink, so he's asking for water, because if he is drinking again, it's more problem for him. I knew that he must not drink, but he pleaded with me, so that I gave in. Water was the worst poison for him, but what else could I do for him? With or without water, it would be over soon anyway. Again, he clearly know that with or without water, everything will be gone, or everything will be ending soon anyway. Again, ellipsis. With or without water, it would be over soon anyway. There's a beautiful alliteration as well there. With or without water, alliteration. You at least have pity on me, his only son. A week went by like that. Is this your father? Asked the prisoner functionary. Yes, he is very sick. The doctor won't do anything for him. He looked me straight in the eye. The doctor cannot do anything more for him, and neither can you. So that is this part is really important. because the doctor is trying to make Elie Wiesel understand that the doctors can't do anything more for him, and neither can you do anything for him. And that's why it is cannot is italicized. He placed his big hairy hand on my shoulder and added, "Listen to me, kid. Don't forget that you are in a concentration camp. In this place, it is every man for himself, and you cannot think of others, not even your father. In this place, there is no such thing as father, brother, friend. Each of us lives and dies alone. Let me give you good advice. Stop giving your ration of bread and soup to your old father. You cannot help him anymore." So the doctor is trying to advise him, saying that there is no hope for his father, and there is no, in concentration camp there is nothing like helping others. It's just all your survival and self-preservation. So the doctor is giving the lessons of self-preservation. Doctor is trying to teach Elie Wiesel the lesson of self-preservation, or the importance of survival, or surviving oneself. So he's trying to make Elie Wiesel understand. And you are hurting yourself. In fact, you should be getting his ration. So the doctor is trying to say that in fact you are hurting yourself. In fact, you should be getting his ration. His ration means his father's ration. So we could see how other people, Elie Wiesel's and father's relationship, they had such a great bond, and the other people, they are trying to make them understand about self-preservation. I listened to him without interrupting. He was right, I thought, deep down, not daring to admit it myself. Again, even at this moment, he is thinking like Rabbi Eli's son, and he says that I listened to him, I didn't even interrupt. I didn't even interrupt, because if it was before, if someone is saying that to me, that not to take care of my father, he would have slapped him maybe. But at this stage, he he's not doing anything. He's just listening to the doctor, and he was right, I thought, deep down, not daring to admit it myself. But he doesn't feel like admitting it. Too late to save your old father. He could have two rations of bread, two rations of soup. So these are the thought that was going through his mind when the doctor says that. Again, we could see his guilty feeling there. He is feeling so guilty, because he is even thinking like that, even though he's not doing it. He's even his thoughts are actually reflecting that. So he has got that guilty. You could see the guilty feeling. It was only a fraction of a second, but it left me feeling guilty again. That's what I said. It was just a fraction of a second. It was just a thought in his mind, but even that thought is actually making Eliezer feel guilty, because he loves his father so much. Even to think like that, he thinks that it is actually wrong, even to think about his father like that. I ran to get some soup and brought it to my father, but he did not want it. All he wanted was water. So even though the doctor advised him, he still went and got some soup for his father, but he did not want it. All he wanted was water. Don't drink water. Eat the soup. I'm burning up. Why are you so mean to me, my son? Water. So when because of his disease, it's burning up in his tummy. It's burning up, and that's why he's asking for water always. I brought him water. Then I left the block for the roll call. But I quickly turned back. I lay down on the upper bunk. So then he heard the roll call. He was about to go back, but then I lay down on the upper bunk. He laid down on the upper bunk. The sick were not allowed to stay in the block, so I would be sick. I didn't want to leave my father. So this is another risk he is taking, and he says that he actually pretends that he is also sick, and he's just lying down just on the upper bunk so that he can look at his father, so that he can take care of his father, because he didn't want to leave his father. Beautiful father-son relationship, that bond. All around me there was silence now, broken only by morning. In front of the block, the SS were giving orders. An officer passed between the bunks. My father was pleading, "My son, water, I'm burning up my insides." "Silence over there," barked the officer. Again, we could see the inhumanity, brutality. Eliezer continued, "My father, water." The officer came closer and shouted to him to be silent, but my father did not hear. He continued to call me. The officer wielded his club and dealt him a violent blow to the head. So again, inhumanity and brutality. I didn't move. I was afraid, my body was afraid of another blow. This time to my head again, we could see inaction and guilt of Ellie Wiesel. And Ellie says that I didn't move. I didn't even make a noise because I knew that if I'm going to make a noise, I would get a blow. And this time the blow would be to my head. So he's trying to preserve himself, survival, just for his survival. I didn't move. I was afraid. My body was afraid of another blow. This time to my head. So that's all about his survival instinct. His survival instinct is coming at that moment. Survival. Again, you could see the brutality here, inhumanity. When a person is during his deathbed, while he's on his deathbed and while he's asking for water, look at the brutality done to them by the Nazis. So survival, and again he has got that guilty feeling there when he says I didn't move. We could see the guilt and a guilty feeling in Eliezer's life. So he fakes illness to stay with his father because he loves his father. But at that moment he couldn't do anything. He was so powerless. He was trying to survive and self-preserve himself. My father groaned once more. I heard Eliezer. I could see that he was still breathing in gasps. I didn't move. So that was the last words, Eliezer. When I came down from my bunk after roll call, I could see his lips trembling. He was murmuring something. I remained more than an hour, leaning over him, looking at him, etching his bloody, broken face into my mind. Again, we could see the love and care. Then I had to go to sleep. I climbed into my bunk above my father, who was still alive. So he's trying to say that on that day when he was about to go to sleep, his father was still alive. That date was January 28th, 1945. I woke up at dawn on January 29. On my father's cot, there lay another sick person. So we are getting the idea that his father is dead, the death of Elie Wiesel's father. And again, he's not ready to say that his father is dead. He's using euphemistic language there. He says that on my father's cot there lay another sick person. They must have taken away before daybreak and taken him to the crematorium. Perhaps he was still breathing. We could see the grief. No prayers were said over his tomb. Remember, he was such a devoted person, but still no prayers were said over his tomb. No candle lit in his memory. His last word had been my name. So we could see he called his name, and Eliezer didn't even listen to those names. His last word had been my name. He had called out to me, and I had not answered. Again, his guilty feeling, his guilt and inaction, we could actually see there. You clearly know that he actually saw or heard his father calling out his name, but he didn't even attend to his father at that moment. And that he had called out to me even just before his death, but I had not answered. I did not weep, and it pained me that I could not weep, but I was out of tears. And deep inside me, if I could have searched the recesses of my feeble conscience, I might have found something like free at last. Again, that is really important. Again, the moment where he says, I did not weep, he says that he couldn't weep. uh, I did not weep, and it pained me that I could not weep, but I was out of tears, and deep inside me, if I could have stretched the recesses of my feeble conscience, I might have found something like free at last. So he's saying that it's not clear. He was really sad. He was really upset. He couldn't even cry. But again, telling us, he's being very honest with us, and he says that deep inside, if someone is looking into my conscience, I might have a feeling that free at last. I'm free. At last I can survive and I can just look after myself. So, despite their efforts to keep each other company and alive, Eliza's father's death is actually anonymous. There's no one there, no one to pray over the tombs, no candle lit in his memory, and his last words had been even my name. So, he has got that guilty feeling. It's a mix of guilt and inaction, and maybe deep down his mind, he may have a relieved feeling that he is at last free. He can just look after his own survival. I'm just finishing up chapter 9 as well because that is the last chapter and it's a small one. So I'll do chapter 9. Chapter 9. Remained in Buchenwald until April 11th. I shall not describe my life during that period. Now, Lee Wiesel says that I'm not going to describe my life during that period. It no longer mattered. Since my father's death, nothing mattered to me anymore. That's really important. It no longer mattered. We could see the family relationship, the broken relationship, the family bond, the family. So when he lost his father, he lost everything, and nothing mattered to him after his father's death. That's what he says. Nothing mattered. I was transferred to the children's blocks where there were 600 of us. The front was coming closer. I spent my days in total idleness, with only one desire to eat. I no longer thought of my father or my mother. It was just survival. He was just surviving, self preservation. He just wanted to eat and preserve self preservation. From time to time, I would dream, but only about soup and extra ration and an extra ration of soup. So throughout his mind, he just wanted to survive. Nothing mattered to him. No feelings, nothing, no thoughts about his father or mother. It just mattered. What just mattered is his own survival. So that's what the idea that we are actually getting there is without his father beside him, Ellie is now just a body. There's no liveliness in his body. It's just a body, and he just wanted to survive. Surviving was just the most important thing at that time because he has lost everything. Nothing mattered to him anymore after his father's death. On April 5th, the wheel of history turned. It was late afternoon. We were standing inside the block, waiting for an SS to come and count us. He was late. Such lateness was unprecedented in the history of Buchenwald. Something must have happened. 2 hours later, the loudspeakers transmitted an order from the camp command, and all Jews were to gather in the roll calling area. This was the end. Hitler was about to keep his promise. The did as children of our block did as ordered. There was no choice. Gustav made it clear with his club, but on our way we met some prisoners who whispered to us, "Go back to your block. The Germans plan to shoot you. Go back and don't move." We returned to the block. On our way there, we learned that the underground resistance of the camp had made the decision not to abandon the Jews and to prevent and to and to prevent their liquidation. Liquidation in the sense just liquidating means knocking off. The camp is going to lock off. As it was getting late and confusion was great, countless Jews had been passing as non-Jews. The officers had decided that a general roll call would take place the next day. Everybody would have to be present. The roll call took place. The commandant announced the Buchenwald camp would be liquidated. So that was the announcement that it's going to be. They're going to knock out the camp. 10 blocks of inmates would be evacuated every day. From that moment on, there was no further distribution of bread and soup, and the evacuation began. Every day, a few thousand inmates passed the camp's gate and did not return. On April 10th, there were still some 20,000 prisoners in the camp, among them a few hundred children. It was decided to evacuate all of us at once. By evening afterward, they would blow up the camp. And so he herded onto the huge area of roll call in ranks of 5, waiting for the gate to open. Suddenly, the sirens began to scream. Alert, we went back to the blocks. It was too late to evacuate us that evening. The evacuation has postponed to the next day. Again, here the sirens began to scream is personification. The sirens. No, I don't want the whole thing to be highlighted. I just want the sirens. Won't let me. Personification. The sirens began to scream. Personification. Personifying. The sirens began to scream. So the evacuation was postponed to the next day. Hunger was tormenting us. We had not eaten nearly for 6 days, except for a few stalks of grass and some potato peels found on the grounds of the kitchens. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the SS took position throughout the camp and began to herd the last of us towards the roll calling area. The resistance movement decided at that point to act. Armed men appeared from everywhere, bursts of gunshots, grenades exploding. We, the children, remained flat on the floor of the block. The battle did not last long. Around noon, Everything was calm again. The SS has fled. The resistance had taken charge of the camp. So the SS had gone. The SS people has gone. At 6 o'clock the afternoon, the first American tank stood at the gates of Buchenwald. So the Americans came there. So the resistance had taken charge of the camp. Our first act as free men was to throw ourselves onto the provisions again. Once they were liberated, the first action was to throw on ourselves onto the provisions of the ration. That's all we thought about. No thought of revenge or of parents, only of bread. Again, we could see they haven't eaten for almost 6 days, so survival was the most important thing. That was the first thing that they did when they were liberated. And even when we were no longer hungry, not one of us thought of revenge. The next day a few of the young men ran into Weimar to bring back some potatoes and clothes and to sleep with girls, but still no trace of revenge. 3 days after the liberation of Buchenwald, I became very ill, some form of poisoning, and I was transferred to hospital and spent 2 weeks of life and death. So he was sick, he got sick because of food poisoning. One day, when I was able to get up, I decided to look at myself in the mirror on the opposite wall. I had not seen myself since the ghetto. From the depths of the mirror, a corpse was contemplating me. The look in his gaze, as he gazed at me, has never left me. So that last line is really important. From the depths of the mirror, a corpse was contemplating me. He was just like a corpse. So the look in his eyes as he gazed at me, that has never left me. So his pathetic condition, his thin body, he was just looking like a corpse. He was actually a corpse. And so, although the book is ending with Ellie's survival, the lasting image from the final page of this book is one of death. So he even towards the end he is talking about death. Even his final image is that of contemplating a corpse was contemplating me. So the image from the final page is one of death. So, after witnessing so much of death, the weak and starving Ellie has come to look like death itself. So, he has actually come to look like death itself. For Ellie, death has replaced God, love, family, and community as the one all powerful fact of existence. So, towards the end, even though there is a hope that he survived all this, there is survival at the end, but still there is an image of death, because after witnessing so much death, the weak and starving Elie Wiesel has come to look like death itself. So that's how he ends his chapter and his memo. That is the end of this, guys, and that's all from me. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have got any comments, or if you have got any thoughts or any discussions that you want to do, please comment in the YouTube comment box so that I can. And if you have got any questions, you can write it down and I can answer that for you guys. So please let me know how it went, and if it was really helpful, please let me know. And if you have got any suggestions, let me know as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.